beginning. I grew up in a loving family. My parents were Roman Catholic, and that's how we were raised. The six of us, mom and dad, my sisters, brother, and I went to church every Sunday and holy days. Our fourth kids made our first confession, communion, and confirmation in the same church. I didn't leave my parents' house until I was in my mid-30s, which I will cover in a later chapter. I was born the second child of my parents, with a sister born about a little over a year before me, and the second sister a few years later. Then lastly, my brother was born. As far as I can remember, I was a happy kid in those early years. I went to a local kindergarten and remember a little about that. Maybe a smidgen of a song or two you learn there, but I do remember the big slide that was there. It looked big to me at the time, and how I was afraid to go up and down it. After kindergarten, I went to Catholic school, which belonged to the church our family belonged to. I remember very vividly putting a big fuss the first few mornings of school. I would make a lot of noise, was crying and carrying on. My mother would tell me to stop it, you're not crying, you're just making a lot of noise because you don't want to go. Just possibly it was a start of social anxiety I would still suffer from now. In Catholic school I went to, we were required to wear a white shirt, green pants, and a green tie with the school's initials on the front of it. The first few years I wore a clip-on tie. Then when I entered 4th grade, I had to wear a regular tie, and I remember my father showing me how to tie it in the bathroom mirror. This memory is one of the fondest memories I have of that time in my life. When I went to Catholic school in the late 60s, my school had both nuns and lay teachers. In 1st grade, I had a nun, Sister Anna. To me, she was mean, and I remember having to sit in the corner of the classroom. I have no idea what I did to deserve this punishment back then, but I would find out so many years later that it would be due to autism spectrum disorder. For some reason, my mother kept all my report cards, and many years later she would give them to me, but there was nothing ever written in them about my behavior. But the girl in my class always seemed to pick on me. I still remember her name, but I won't mention it here. This is not about pointing blame or finding a fault, but trying to understand what was going on with me. I can't really blame the nuns or teachers back then, because as I have said from the beginning, nobody knew about autism or anything about that. But still, some of the older nuns were mean to me. My sister, who was a year ahead of me, would come to my rescue or tell my mother, who would then walk down to school with my sister and brother in the baby carriage and tell the nuns to stop picking on me. Well, I made it through that first year of school by the skin of my teeth. But my parents decided to have me kept back in 1st grade. In that 2nd year, I guess I did a little better than the 1st year and promoted to 2nd grade. When you're kept back at a grade, all your friends move on, but you don't. You end up having to make a whole new set of friends. I don't remember being picked on or bullied out of the school today. I can imagine it must have been at some point. As kids in any grade, I came to pick on other kids who they see it as weak or different. I remember after one Christmas, I had brought a battle and Topps game I had gotten that Christmas to school for recess, and some kid had come by and walked on it and had broken it. I was crushed as well as the game. Even though I was an emotional person and things that affected me very deeply. As I understand myself better now, I try not to keep things to myself, but as a little boy I kept them all to myself. I remember one winter, a girl in our neighborhood who went to the same school as my sister and her mother would often take us to school. In the 1960s, we always had cold and snowy winters. Well, that winter we had ice and snow, and the school church parking lot was frozen over with ice and snow. That day, we were dropped off. I ran to the school, and because we were late anyway, we all ran into the church parking lot, where there happened to be a big patch of ice, and I must have hit that most slippery spot. And I went down. My lunchbox, me hitting the ice, and my lunch going everywhere, and myself laying there crying because all of that had happened. There was another time at the Catholic school when it was a very windy day. I was standing in front of a basketball hoop and pole that had been taken down, and I was leaning against the building. And the wind blew the basketball hoop over and it hit me in the head, and I had to go to the emergency room to get stitches. Also during this time in grade school, I remember that I was afraid to ask to go to the bathroom. Would come home with wet pants. My mother had to arrange it with some nuns and teachers for my sisters to take me to the bathroom. And like I said, she was a grade ahead of me and would come down and get me out of class and take me upstairs to the lavatory. There was always some good memories of my time at the Catholic school. I remember doing a Thanksgiving play in 2nd grade, and my mother walking down to school with my younger sister and brother in the baby carriage to watch me. Back when I was in grade school, we thought the word crap was a swear word. Even though I haven't seen most of those kids from my Catholic school days for years, I still have a memory of myself and a couple of other boys hanging out in the schoolyard and thinking we were cool by saying the crap word. The school closed down in about 1970 as the church couldn't afford the upkeep of it anymore. The kids went to another Catholic school, and Anna went to West Warwick and some to Coventry schools. Because we lived in Coventry, that's where we went to school. My sister and I both went into the public school system. My sister went to 7th grade and I went into special ed classroom. I think about that time in my life quite a bit, as it was an innocent time and things were good to be a kid. When I was around 9 or 10, a new family moved into our neighborhood. They were the Ellises, and they had 3 girls and 1 boy in that family, and the boy's name was Mark. Even though he was a few years younger than me, we hit it off right away and became best friends. We did everything together and also got in trouble together. We both had pup tents. Mark had an old army tent, and I had a canvas tent I had received for my 10th birthday. We were both allowed to set up our tents in our own yards and would sleep over each other's house during the summer. I was only allowed to keep up my tent for a week so it wouldn't kill the grass. That's what I was told from my father back then. Those days are the best times in my young life because Mark and I were always together and we would go on vacations with his family. I was always very anxious for him to come home, and now as a 6-year-old man thinking about this time makes me very emotional. There were kids in my neighborhood who I hung around with. The Roberts who lived next door to us had a pop-up camping trailer, and 2 or 3 of us would be able to sleep on it in the summertime. But my friendship with Mark was special to this day. To the shy, quiet boy who wouldn't say boo to anyone. I knew in Mark that I had a very special friend who would stand by me no matter what. There are a couple of instances that come to mind about how close my friendship was. One winter, Mark and I were sledding down at a place we called the Dead End. I guess it was called that because it was at the end of a street at the bottom of the hill. Anyway, I just slid down the hill, and Scott Rabbit, another boy who was just slid down behind me and slid into me. No doubt on purpose, and then proceeded to pick a fight with me and blame me for it. Of course I fought back, and my friend Mark was there yelling on the back, "Come on Jim, hit him." I think I ended up with a black eye or something, but I heard that Scott ended up worse, and I had won the fight. Another thing happened, possibly that same winter. Mark and I were hanging out together and ended up going down to the dead end where there was a stream. So as kids, we decided to crack the ice on the stream. Yes, we actually had cold winters back then. Well, for some reason, actually, known to God or anyone else, I put my hand in the way of Mark's foot where he was cracking the ice, and he stepped on it with his boot heel. All I knew then, and my hair was bleeding, and we had to go home to have it looked at by my mother. Then it was decided that it was bad enough that I would have to go to the emergency room to get stitches. When I was little, I was a stitch king. I was always getting hurt like that. I remember very vividly that while my mother was looking at my hand, I was rolling my eyes out, but not because my hands hurt. Excuse me, because I thought Mark would get in trouble for hurting me. I guess I had empathy even at a young age. Of course he didn't get in trouble, as my mother told me many times, and I ended up with a few stitches in my hand. Mark was a very special friend to me back then. We would always get together, and we were always together. I remember one year His dad had built him a tree house and it was in the back of the house. Or yard. Back then that was a cool thing to do. Anyway, I was afraid to climb up to it back then. I remember feeling very sad that I was not able to climb up and be with Mark. My 12th birthday, my dad took Mark and I to get my birthday present at Betty's department store. The present turned out to be a new bike. It was gold with monkey handlebars and a banana seat. I had that bike until I was 15. That is a story for later. I don't remember if Mark had a bike, but he must have had one. We had a lot of fun with that bike. My dad would fix it up and repair any flat tires. One year, I got a different kind of handlebars. They were called ram handlebars because they were shaped like ram's horns. I kept thinking back, I don't think I used them much as they were difficult to use. I had Mark for a friend for at least 3 years. They were the best years of my childhood in so many ways. The same year I turned 12, I got the new bike with Sammy and Mark and his family moved to Connecticut. That age 12 was a very tough age for me. My best friend had just moved away and I felt very alone. I have very vivid memories walking by Mark's old house or his old tree house and stand there and cry my eyes out. On that there, and thank you for listening.